Rachel Sussman. I'm a New York City-based couples therapist and relationship expert. I'm also a passionate world traveler and a lover of Sicily. There's much to love about Sicily. I personally love the natural beauty, the history, the food and wine, and the incredible spirit of the Sicilian people. In fact, I love Sicily so much that I've visited 3 times over the last 10 years, most recently last summer, where I celebrated a milestone birthday in beautiful Cefalo and amazing Taormina. I dream of Sicily when I'm not there, and I can't wait to return again one day. I'm so pleased to have been invited to read an excerpt from Louise Douglas's novel, which takes place in Sicily, and it's called The House by the Sea. Here's an introduction written by Miss Douglas that she asked me to read. Hi, I'm Louise, the author of The House by the Sea. Rachel is so kindly reading from the book, which was inspired by my visits to Sicily from my home in England over the past decade. I'm very grateful for her for doing this on my behalf. For me in Sicily, it was literally a case of love at first sight. It's hard to describe my great love without gushing, but I'll try to be concise. Historically, Sicily has got to be one of the most complex places on earth. Its landscape is diverse and lovely, beautiful cities teeming with culture, art, architecture, exquisite remote hilltop villages, nature reserves, salt pans, Mount Etna, and a fantastic coastline surrounded by a crystal clear emerald green sea. It has food, wine, music, literature, everything anyone could want. The colors and light are breathtaking. Most of all, Sicily has a personality that's unique. Its people are warm, welcoming, good-humored, and incredibly generous and kind. But the island also does have its dark side, which is interesting for a writer. The House by the Sea is set on a fictional headline that lies amongst real places to the south of Sicily. Many of the locations echo those used in the TV series Montalbano, based on the Camilleri novels, of which I'm also a fan. If anyone hasn't visited the area, including the 3 World Heritage cities, then you're really missing something wonderful. It's simply the most glorious place I've ever visited in the world. The story in the book concerned a couple, Edie and Joe, who've been divorced for a decade following a personal tragedy. They've inherited a joint villa on the Sicilian coastline, and they've traveled there together to organize a sale. I'm going to be reading from chapter 9. This chapter describes Edie's arrival at the Villa del Madonna del Mare and sees the place for the first time. I'm going to show you a picture of the book. This is The House by the Sea by Louise Douglas, and I'm going to be reading to you from chapter 9. We climbed out of the car and stood beside the ticking engine, looking up at an old stone wall 8 feet high and topped with metal spikes. In its center, 2 enormous wrought iron gates were chained shut. My eye followed the line of the wall, high and solid, built to keep people out or to keep them in. Plants tumbled over as trying to escape the garden inside. Bougainvillea competed with wild rose, thousands of flowers running wild. Drainage gargoyles had been built into the wall at intervals. Plants crept between the lips of their gurning mouths, and ivy clung to the stone. The scent was intoxicating, the buzzing of insects amongst the blooms deafening. The shadows were lengthening. The sun was blazing towards the horizon, and the promise of evening hung around us. I breathed in the perfume air by jasmine, pine, resin, and ozone. I didn't realize I began, but I tailed off because I couldn't pretend I didn't know about the villa and what it was like. The year we lost Daniel, the year we were supposed to come here, I'd asked lots of questions about the villa, and Anna had shown me photographs of some old Sin film. In the wake of everything that happened after, I'd let those memories fade, and being here now for the first time, I had a sense of having been here before. It was as if I knew the villa, as if it had been waiting for me to come. Joe walked over to the gates and rested one hand on the metal, running his fingers over an ironwork vine. Every summer, he said, when we came to Sicily, our grandfather used to meet us at the airport and drive us back here in his Alfa Romeo. I used to wear his sunglasses and leather jacket and sit in the front seat next to him. I felt like Steve McQueen. I'd heard that story many times. Joe loved telling it, and Daniel loved hearing tales about his great-grandfather's car. He'd had a toy Alfa Romeo that he used to drive around the furniture in the London flat. Joe promised Daniel that one day they'd drive around Sicily together and visit all the football stadiums. He was probably thinking about that right now. I wrapped my arms around myself and walked away from my ex-husband to the edge of the parking area. I looked down. Glassy seawater lapped against the edges of a vertical wall of volcanic rock. I could see into the water, late sunlight glinting on the fish that darted among the weed. Beside me was a post with a weather-worn wooden sign nailed to the top. Painted in slated blue leathers all over a white background were the words, Villa della Madonna del Mare. The artist had decorated the letters with little blue waves, starfish, and seashells. I heard clanking as the chain that held the gates together clattered to the ground. Joe took hold of one of the gates and heaved. It groaned monstrously as it moved to open. When the gap was wide enough, Joe squeezed through and disappeared into the gardens. It felt strange to be alone. It was so quiet, the only sounds were the insects and the gentle splashing of the water against the rock. After a moment or two, I too went through the gates, walking slowly, feeling as if I was trespassing. The heat contained inside the wall was stifling, and the smell of jasmine, sweet and musky, reminiscent of Anna's perfume. I was standing in a driveway, gravel beneath the soles of my uncomfortable sandals, weeds and thistles and self-seeded grass and wildflower growing through the small stones. On either side, shrubs and climbers tangled together. Flowers climbed through the trees, set free from their beds and their borders. Cicadas sang, birds fluttered between the branches. It was chaotic and creepy and magical, riotous, spots and splashes of color and movement flickering on the periphery of my vision. I took a few steps forward, turned a corner, and saw Joe ahead of me, looking around with awe. Fading sunlight gilded the garden. Joe reached up to the leaf of a tree and picked a fruit. He raised it to his lips and bit into it. Then he threw the fruit into the flowers. I followed him through alternating patches of golden sunlight and deep shade as the drive meandered to the left and then to the right. At every step, something new revealed itself. A wild creeper scrambling over a statue, a patch of bright orange poppies, the veins of petals picked out by the sun, sparrows dust bathing, a lizard posing on a giant sundial with a crack in its center, a huge olive tree, its trunk gnarled solid as a rock. Then at last, behind the line of topiary gone feral, in an old low-growing tree, masking one corner of the building, we found the villa. It was classical in design, 2 stories high with a red-tiled roof, whitewash peeling from its plaster stone walls. A stone balcony ran beneath the 3 central first-floor Palladian windows, and beneath was an opened, colonnaded porch. Although weeds were growing from the gutters and there were holes in the roof where the tiles had slipped, the villa hadn't lost any of its beauty. It was an aging film star, a retired ocean liner, beautiful, abandoned, fading, but not yet destroyed, and sympathetically lit by the dying sunlight. Time kaleidoscoped. I swear I could feel Joe's ancestors moving around me, coming in and out of the villa. If I closed my eyes and concentrated, I would have heard the whispers of their voices. A dove startled us, rising up from amongst the undergrowth, the sound of its wings like a gunshot. I came closer until I was standing just feet behind Joe, so close that I could smell the fabric of his shirt, his skin, his sweat. The villa's windows were covered by shutters reinforced on the ground floor by planks of wood nailed over them. They were strung with cobwebs, decorated with wind-blown petals, the paint peeling, the wood beneath it bleached. The front door was barricaded too, 2 planks crisscrossing diagonally, bolting it to its frame. The last people that had come to the villa had made it secure before they abandoned it to the wildlife and the ghosts. In the next instant, I had the strongest feeling that someone was watching from the inside of the building. I looked towards the upper windows, my eyes scanning them one by one. If anyone was there, they were hidden behind the shutters and we'd never be able to see them from down here. Or perhaps they weren't in the villa. Perhaps they were in the garden. I turned, half expecting to catch someone peeping amongst the undergrowth, but the only movement were butterflies flirting amongst the flowers. Still, the visceral unease grew stronger. Someone was watching. I was sure of it. The color of the light grew more intense. Scarlet and gold bled across the sky. One last hurrah before the sun died and the villa's facade glowed red. When the sun set, the garden would be plunged into darkness, and then we wouldn't be able to see anything. We might not be able to find our way out. We would be at the mercy of whatever or whoever haunted the villa and its garden. I shivered. "Let's go now," I said to Joe. He didn't say a word, but turned and led the way back to the car. Thank you so much.